Students, welcome to EPG Padashala. This module is all about United Nations guidelines on crime prevention. The learning objectives are to understand the key concept in crime prevention models, strategies, programs, to acquaint with the working of the international agencies of crime prevention, to enrich the knowledge on aims, goals, missions and activities of international agencies. The learning outcomes: to make the learner understand the key concept in crime prevention, to acquaint the learners with United Nations guidelines and of crime prevention, to enrich the learners with inspirational practices for better crime prevention. United Nations guidelines on crime prevention is a standard document that will be used for the rest of the presentation. Crime prevention comprises of strategies and measures that seeks to reduce the risk of crime occurring and their potential harmful effects on individuals and society, including fear of crime, by intervening to influence their multiple causes. There are two documents: Economic and Social Council resolution acknowledge. There is an acknowledgement in this presentation. This module is basically a partially copied document from the United Nations web page as given in the reference in later half. The first document is the guidelines for cooperation and technical assistance in the field of urban crime prevention, Economic and Social Council resolution 1995/9, and the guidelines for the prevention of crime, Economic and Social Council resolution 2002-13. Crime is a complex social problem that affects any society. The act of crime ranges from simple to serious. Serious crimes against a person and properties generate considerable fear within the community. Does not mean simple crimes or routine crimes have any effect. Crime like theft, break-in, rape and murder are serious threat to the safety of the community. The resulting fear of crime in itself can restrict people's freedom of movement and prevent them from fully participating in community. In particular, some group of people are more vulnerable to crime and fear of crime. For example, older people, women, parents, teenagers, minorities, marginalized, LGBT, etc. Conventionally, the community has turned to police and the criminal justice to protect them from deterring criminals and punishing offenders. The general public's indifference towards self-protection arises mainly from the lack of knowledge of means of protection and perhaps a perception that somebody else, the government or insurance company, bear the most of the cost of theft and vandalism. In order to have common and best workable strategies, many organizations across the world conduct research to develop models of crime prevention. Many different strategies are needed to combat the complex issues of crime and its fear. The public at large should be able to feel that their space are safer. These strategies, models or programs of crime prevention requires contributions from architects, developers, criminal justice agencies, public administration, educators and public at large, is acknowledged widely by researchers and agencies, institutes. The aim of the crime prevention is safety of public communities, that are fear of crime and protection of peace and order of a society. In order to achieve the best model programs in crime prevention that will aid to protect the societies across the world, which needs some working guidelines that are developed by the United Nations with its expert team on crime prevention. It has recommended guidelines for crime prevention. Some of them are as follows: Handbook on Crime Prevention Guidelines, thus making them work; Handbook on Prevention in Southern Africa and Caribbean region, Practical Approach to Urban Crime Prevention; Handbook of the Prevention of Recidivism and the Social Reintegration of Offender; Handbook on Civilian Private Security Services. The major guidelines are proposed by United Nations for better crime prevention. That includes the following resolutions. United Nations, recalling its Resolution 1994/20 of 25th July 1994 and Resolution number 1, Section 4 of the 9th United Nations Congress on the Prevention of Crime and Treatment of Offenders, bar 1, in which 9th Congress invited the Commission on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice at its 4th session to finalize and adopt the proposed guidelines for cooperation and technical assistance in the field of urban crime prevention, annexed to Resolution 1994/20, recalling the Millen's Plan of Action. Second, the United Nations Standard Minimum Rules for the Administration of Juvenile Justice, the Beijing Rule, the United Nations Guidelines for Prevention of Juvenile Delinquency, the Riyadh Guidelines, the United Nations Standard Minimum Rules for Non-Custodial Measures, the Tokyo Rules, the Declaration of Basic Principles of Justice for Victims of Crime and Abuse of Power. And the last one is the Resolution on Prevention of Urban Crime adopted by 8th United Nations Congress on the prevention of crime and treatment of offender. Aware of the universal character of urban crimes. However, in specific to crime prevention, two important guidelines are proposed, namely guidelines for cooperation and technical assistance in the field of urban crime prevention and guidelines for the prevention of crime, which are proposed through Economic and Social Council resolutions. They are given in very much in detail. First, the guidelines for cooperation and technical assistance in field of urban crime prevention. This has two parts. Part A, the design and implementation of cooperation and assistance activities. Cooperation projects for urban crime prevention should take account on the principles set out. The local approach to problems. Urban crime is characterized by multiplicity of factors and forms. A multiple agency approach and a coordinated response to the local level is accordance with integrated crime prevention action plan will often be helpful. This should involve a local logistic survey of the crime phenomena, their characteristics, factors leading to them. Point B, the identification of all relevant factors that could be part in compiling the above mentioned diagnostic survey in crime prevention as well in fighting crime against, for example, public institution, national or local, locally elected officials, the private sector, association, enterprises, the voluntary sector, community representative, etc. Point 3, the establishment wherever appropriate of consultation mechanism promoting closer liaison, the exchange of information, joint work and the design of a coherent strategy. Point 4, the elaboration of the possible solution to these problems in the local context. 2, integrated crime prevention plan. The author of an integrated crime prevention plan, in order for it to be comprehensive and efficient, should define the nature and type of crime problems to be tackled, such as theft, robbery, burglary, racial attacks, drug related crimes, juvenile delinquency, illegal possession of firearms, taking into all the factors that may directly or indirectly cause such problems or contribute to them, the objectives being pursued and the time by which they should be attained, the action envisaged and the respective responsibility of these involved via implementation of the project plan, whether local or national resources are to be mobilized. Consider involving a range of factors representing in particular social workers and education, housing and health workers, in addition to the police, court, public prosecutor and probation services, the community elected officials, association, volunteers, parents, victims organization, etc. The economic sector, enterprises, banks, business, public transport, etc. The media. Consider the relevance to the crime prevention action plan, such as relationship in the family, between the generations or between the social group, etc. Education, religious and moral, civil values and culture, employment, training, measures for combating unemployment and poverty, housing and urbanism, health, drug and alcohol abuse, government and community welfare aid for the least fortunate members of society, combating the culture of violence and intolerance, considerable providing for action at various levels. Primary prevention by promoting situational criminal prevention measures such as target hardening and opportunity reduction, by promoting welfare and health development and progress, and by combating all forms of social deprivation, by promoting communal values and respect for fundamental human rights, by promoting civic responsibility and social mediation procedures, facilitating the adoption for working methods of the police and the court. Prevention of recidivism by facilitating adoption of method of police intervention, by facilitating the adoption of methods of judicial intervention and implementation of alternative remedies. Diversification of methods of treatment and of measures taken according to the nature and seriousness of cases. Systematic research on the reintegration of the offender involved in urban crime through implementation of non-custodial measures. Social education support within the framework of sentence in prison and as preparation for release from prison, by giving an active role to the community in rehabilitation of offenders. After the sentence have been served, aid and social educational support, family support, etc. Protection of victims by practical improvement in their treatment by means of following: raising awareness of rights and how to exercise them effectively, reinforce rights, particularly the rights to compensation, introducing system of victim assistance. Part 2 of this presentation, implementation of action plan. Central authorities are the central authority to the extent consistent with their competence should be provided active support, assistance and encouragement to local actors, coordinator national policy and strategies and local strategies and needs, organize consultation cooperation mechanism between the various administrations concerned at central levels. Authorities at all levels, competent authorities at all levels should be constantly mindful of respect for the fundamental principles of human rights in promoting these activities. Encourage and implement appropriate training and information to support all professionals involved in crime prevention. Compare experiences and organize exchange of know-how. Provide a means of evaluating regularly the effectiveness of strategies implemented and provided for possibility of revising it. Guidelines for crime prevention. There is a clear evidence that well-planned crime prevention strategies not only prevent crime and victimization but also promote community safety and contribute to the sustainable development of country. Effective responsible crime prevention enhances the quality of life of all the citizens. It has a long-term benefit in terms of reducing the cost associated with formal criminal justice system as well other social costs that results from crime. Crime prevention offers an opportunity for humane and more cost-effective approach to the problems of crime. The present guidelines outline the necessary implement elements for effective crime prevention. Conceptual framework of references. It is the responsibility of all levels of government to create, maintain and promote a context within which relevant government institutions and all segments of civil society including the corporate sectors can better play their part in preventing crime. For the purpose of the present guidelines, crime prevention comprises strategies and measures that seeks to reduce the risk of crimes occurring and their potential harmful effect on individual society including fear of crime by intervening to influence their multiple causes. The enforcement of law, sentences and correction while also performing preventive function fall outside the scope of guidelines given the comprehensive coverage the subject in other. The United is abide by the United Nations document. The present guidelines address the crime and its effects on victims and society and takes account that the growing internationalism of criminal activity. Community involvement and cooperation. Partnership represents an important element of the concept of crime prevention set out herein. While the term community may be defined in different ways, its essence in this context is involvement of civil society at local level. Crime prevention encompasses a wide range of approaches including those which promote the well-being of people and encourage pro-social behavior through social, economic, health and educational measures. With a particular emphasis on the children and youth, focus on risk and protective factors associated with crime and victimization. Change the conditions in neighborhood that influence offending, victimization and insecurity that results from crime by building on initiative, expertise and commitment of community member. Prevent the occurrence of the crime by reducing opportunity, increasing risk of being apprehended and minimizing benefits including through environment design and by providing assistance and information to potential and actual victims. Prevent recidivism by assisting in social and reintegration of offenders and preventive mechanisms. Basic principles of government leadership. All levels of government should play a leadership role in developing effective and humane crime prevention strategies and in creating and maintaining institutional framework for their implementation and review. Socio-economic development and inclusion. Crime prevention considerations should be integrated into all relevant social and economic policies and programs, including those addressing employment, education, health, housing and urban planning, poverty, social marginalization and exclusion. Particularly, emphasis should be placed on communities, families, children and youth at risk. Cooperation or partnership. Partnership should be an integral part of the effective crime prevention, given the wide ranging nature of the cause of crime and skills and responsibilities required to address them. This includes partnership working across ministries and between authorities, community, organization, non-governmental organizations, the business sectors and private citizens. Sustainable or accountability. Crime prevention requires adequate resources, including funding for structures and activities in order to be sustained. There should be a clear accountability for funding, implementation and evaluation and for achievement of planned result. Knowledge-based crime prevention strategies, policies, programs and action should be based on broad multidisciplinary foundation of knowledge about crime problem, their multiple causes and promising and proven practices. Human rights, rule of law, culture of lawlessness. The rule of law and those human rights which are recognized in international instruments to which member states are parties must be respected in all aspects of crime prevention. A culture of lawfulness should be actively promoted in crime prevention interdependency. National crime prevention diagnostics and strategies should where appropriate take account link between local crime problem and international organized crime. Differential crime prevention strategies should when appropriately pay due to different need of men and women, considering the special needs of the vulnerable. Organizations, methods and approaches. Recognizing that all states have unique government structures, these sections set out tool and methodologies that government and all segments of civil society should consider in developing strategies to prevent and reduce victimization. It draws an international good practices. Community involvement. In some of the areas listed below, government bears the primary responsibility. However, the active participation of communities and other segment of civil society is an essential part of the effective crime prevention community. In particular, should play an important role on identifying crime prevention priority in implementation and evaluation and in helping identify a sustainable resource base. Organization government structures. Governments should involve prevention as permanent part of their structure and program for controlling crime, ensuring that clear responsibilities and goal exist within government for organization of crime prevention by inter alia. Establishing center for focal point with expertise and resources. Establishing a crime prevention plan with clear priority and target. Establishing linkages and coordination between relevant government agencies or department. Fostering partnership with non-governmental organization, the business, private and professional sector and the community. Seeking the active participation of the public in crime prevention by informing it of the need for and means of action and its role. Training and capacity building. Government should support the development of crime prevention skill by providing professional development for senior officials in relevant agencies. Encouraging universities, colleges and other relevant education agencies to offer basic and advanced courses in collaboration with practitioners. Working with the educational and professional sector to develop certification and professional qualification. Promoting the capacity of communities to develop and respond to their needs. Supporting partnership. Government and all segments of civil society should support the principle of partnership where appropriate, including all advancing knowledge of the the importance of this principle and the component of successful partnership, including the need for all of partners to have clear and transparent rules, fostering their formation at different levels and across sectors, facilitating their efficient operation sustainably. Governments and other funding bodies should strive to achieve sustainability of demonstrable effective crime prevention program and initiative through inter alia, reviewing resources allocation to establish and maintain an appropriate balance between crime prevention and the criminal justice and other systems to be more effective in preventing crime and victimization, establishing clear accountability for funding, programming and coordinating crime prevention initiative, encouraging community involvement in sustainability. B. Methods knowledge based. An appropriate government and civil society should facilitate knowledge based crime prevention by inter alia, providing the information necessary for communities to address crime problems, supporting the generation of useful and practical applicable knowledge that is scientifically valuable, reliable and valid, supporting the organization and synthesis of knowledge and identifying and addressing gaps in the knowledge base, sharing that knowledge as appropriate among inter alia researchers, policymakers, educators, practitioners from other relevant sectors and the wider community. Applying this knowledge is in replicating successful intervention, developing new initiative and anticipating new crime problems and prevention opportunities, establishing data system to help manage crime prevention more effective, including by conducting regular survey of victimization and offending, promoting the application of those data in order to reduce repeat victimization, persistence offending and areas with high level of crime. Planning intervention. Those planning intervention should be promote a process that includes a systematic analysis of crime problem, their causes, risk factors and consequences in particular at local levels. A plan that draws on the most appropriate approach and adapts intervention to the specific local problem and context. An implementation plan to deliver appropriate intervention that are efficient and effective and sustainable, mobilizing entities that are able to tackle causes. Monitoring and evaluation, support evaluation. Government, other funding bodies and those involved in program development and delivery should undertake short and long term evaluation to test rigorously what works where and why. Undertake cost benefit analysis, assess the extent to which action result in reduction in levels of crime and victimization, in the seriousness of crime and in fear of crime. Systematically assess the outcomes and unintended consequences, both positive and negative, of action, such as decrease in crime rates or the stigmatization of the individual and the community. Approaches. This section expands upon the social development and situational crime prevention approaches. It also outlines approaches that government and civil society should endeavor to follow in order to prevent organized crime. Social development. Government should address the risk factors of crime and victimization by promoting protective factors through comprehensive and non-stigmatizing social and economic development, including health, education, housing and employment. Promoting activities that redress marginalization and exclusions. Promoting positive conflict resolution. Using education and public awareness strategies to foster a culture of lawfulness and tolerance while respecting culture identities. Situational governments and civil society, including where appropriate the corporate sector should support the development of situational prevention programs by inter alia. Improved environment design. Appropriate method of surveillance that are sensitive to the right to privacy. Encouraging the design of consumer goods to make them more resistant to crime. Target hardening without impinging upon the quality of the built environment or limiting the free access to public space. Implementing strategies to prevent repeat victimization, prevention of organized crime. Governments and civil society should endeavor to analyze and address the links between transnational organized crime and national and local problems by inter alia, reducing existing and future opportunities for organized criminal group to participate in the lawful market with the proceeds of crime through appropriate legislative, administrative or other measures. Developing measures to prevent the misuse by organized criminal groups of tender procedure conducted by public authorities and subsidized and licensed granted by public authorities for commercial activities. Designing crime prevention strategies where appropriate to protect socially marginalized group, especially women and children who are vulnerable to the action to organized criminal group, including trafficking in person and smuggling of migrants. International cooperation, standards and norms in promoting international action in crime prevention. Member states are invited to take into account the main international instrument related to human rights and crime prevention to which they are parties, such as Convention on the Rights of the Child, the Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women, the Guidelines for Prevention of Juvenile Delinquency, the Declaration of Basic Principles of Justice for Victims of Crime and Abuse of Power, the Guidelines for Cooperation and Technical Assistance in field of urban crime prevention, as well the Vienna Declaration on Crime and Justice, meeting the challenges of the 21st century. United Nations Convention against Transnational Organized Crime and Protocols, thereto, technical assistance. Member states and relevant international funding organizations should provide financial and technical assistance, including capacity building and training, to developing countries with economies in transition, communities and other relevant organizations for implementation of effective crime prevention and community safety strategies at the regional, national and local levels. In that context, special attention should be given to research and action on crime prevention through social development. Networking member states should strengthen or establish international relation and national crime prevention network with a view to promising practice, identifying elements of the transferability and making such knowledge available to communities throughout the world. Link between transnational and local crime. Member states should collaborate to analyze and address the link between transnational organized crime and national and local crime problem. Prioritizing crime prevention. The Center for International Prevention, the United Nations Prevention and Criminal Justice Program network of affiliated and associated institutes and other relevant United Nations entities should include in their priorities crime prevention as set out in these guidelines, set up a coordination mechanism and establish a roster of experts to undertake needs assessment and provide technical assistance, technical advices. Dissemination of relevant United Nations bodies and other organizations should cooperate to produce crime prevention information in as many languages as possible using both print and electronic media. Summary of this presentation: the crime prevention guidelines proposed by United Nations are mixed or hybrid in nature. The concentration is given to overall crime prevention. These guidelines are proposed for better crime prevention. For better results, every country need to check and work on local requirements and act accordingly. It entrusts the responsibility with the government, NGO, public administration, local communities and individuals. The crime prevention attempts can be more effective if the guidelines are followed with exchange of information between the agencies. Ultimately, the inspiration of the guidelines is think global, act local and achieve in neighborhood. Thank you.